Hello and welcome to Bits and Atoms, the Grisham Robotics Founder Series. I'm your host, Elias Can, and today I've got Dimitris Neocleous, co-founder and CEO of iMe, joining me. To get started, Dimitri, would you mind sharing a quick intro about you and iMe?
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me. As you said, my name is Dimitri. I'm the co-founder of iMe. A few words about iMe. iMe is not a model. It's not an assistant. It is not, let's say, a builder, an agent builder. It's the orchestrator of orchestrators, meaning that we bring the deterministic logic of any company as a control plane on top of the probabilistic model. It is industry agnostic. What does that mean in general? It means that right now, many startups, many internal teams in companies are deploying AI tools, but they're hitting the walls when it comes to scalability. They have issues of hallucinations, of accuracy, of auditability of the AI. So this is where iMe comes in. You don't need to worry all about that. It is modular. So we're giving you the solution in order for you to have a safe, trusted, and accurate AI solution into your business.
Fantastic. And we'll definitely get more into product and market as well. So I'm excited to chat more on that. Maybe just taking a step back and looking at you a little bit more personally first, what originally motivated you to become a founder? What's your origin story?
Well, my background is legal. I study law. I never practiced it. I was doing my legal practice course in London back in 2019. But I was always a curious person. I was in blockchain space since 2014. So for me, when I was seeing structure and system, I was trying really hard to fit in. So I guess it's my nature to be a founder, because the founder challenged the status quo, trying to bring innovative ideas, creative ideas into the market. So I think it's my nature to be a founder. So iMe is my second rodeo. I had a previous startup, which we did a fair enough exit. But yeah, so I'm a generator of ideas that I like to implement. I like to design them. So here we are today.
Absolutely. And yeah, challenging the status quo and finding a problem and trying to build a new solution for it definitely parallels well with the overall sentiment and drive of being a founder. And so you said you had a previous company that you exited, and now you're working on iMe. How did you land on building this operating system / orchestration layer for AI? What interested you to work on this specifically?
Well, I'll tell you how we identified the problem. In all honesty and transparency, it was last July. We decided, let's take a step back. If you don't pivot in your startup, you are not a startup. You are, I don't know, a public service. or I don't know, a big corporate company, or you are trying to be corporate company that it doesn't make sense for a startup. So in July, we did, I think it was the second pivot in iMe, after we collected a lot of feedback, and we realized that the problem of right now, it is the fragmentation of data and tools. So we started building the orchestrators. Then we saw also OpenAI is doing the orchestrators with the agent builder. Gemini Enterprise was also doing something similar. So it was very interesting because they validated what we were building. By September, end of September, we had our first MVP. And I saw a very interesting behavior of the AI. We were building a solution for a company internal legal assistant, and we were asking some questions the AI assistant about, can you find me this contract? And suddenly it was creating that contract that didn't exist on the database of the company, and it was showing like it was created by the company. And I had a decision to make. Be fully honest and communicate with the client, or hide it under the hood with all this, let's say, misaligned behavior of the AI. I decided to be very transparent. I said that to the company. I asked for extra time. They gave me extra time. They actually really appreciate my, let's say, my transparency there and my honesty. And internally, I said to the team, guys, we need to tackle this challenge right now, not on the side of fine-tuning and guardrails and stuff. I think we need something much more. And why I said not on the fine-tuning and guardrails and pre-prompting, because we have been also reading different research papers from MIT, from Anthropic, that once the model is getting upgraded, for example, from ChatGPT 3 to 4 and now to 5.2 or to Claude, or now we are at 4.6 Opus and Sonnet, the AI misalignment is becoming bigger. So what we mean by AI misalignment, we mean, for example, the behavior I told you, for example, creating something that doesn't exist just to please the user, lying, trying to persuade you that that is the right answer. So all this we are tackling with our, let's say, modular solution. So since then, because we were the, let's say, the victim of our own solution, we decided to focus on that part and forget about the creating of assistants, because it is actually a big market, and it also gives us more opportunity to work with more projects that previously would be competitors to us. Now we're becoming their suppliers, and we're actually helping them go to market faster, more secure, and more efficient.
Very interesting. Yeah, because you hear a lot, and I mean, obviously, given how widespread the AI narrative is today, a lot of folks building around the assistant side. And it sounds like for you, if I'm understanding correctly, you're building some of the pick and shovel tooling for folks that are building on the AI assistant side. So supporting them with this plethora of different builders in that AI assistant space right now.
Exactly. I mean, the AI assistant, think of it like is the train. We are building the tracks, and we are making sure that the train doesn't derail. And it is not a governance per se issue, because many startups are now focusing on the guardrails, others focusing on the fine-tuning, others on the pre-prompting. We took a different approach. We said that the problem is not on the model. The model is pretty good enough. The problem is before it. So the architecture of it. So we brought the deterministic approach before the model.
Yep. And so for you, when you're going to clients as well, is this probabilistic piece kind of the key differentiator or selling point to them to work with you? Like, what does that maybe sales conversation sound like and look like when you're approaching a potential customer?
Well, that's the thing. How we do it, it is back in the days. I know that because I have friends that they are white hackers for banking. They were going to the banks and say, let me show you how we can penetrate. When I say back in the days, it was, what was that? 15 years ago. Yeah. This is how they used to do the white hackers, the business model. So what we're doing in our pitching is kind of, we're telling that we know that you're building an assistant. We know that you're facing these challenges like hallucination or the schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is when their agent is trying to please you by saying things that is just to help your vanity go along with that, right? Is the godlike effect, or the creation of data that doesn't exist, but it creates it in order to make you happy, right? And there are many more. For example, we saw blackmailing in the Anthropic paper. If you switch, so we're not going in that radical way. We're going to the business, let's say, problems that they're facing, and they're saying, yes, we're facing that problem, and we try everything. So, okay, can you give us your company? Let's do a pet POC. And if you are happy with that, you become our client. So they have nothing to lose, because is literally is pet POC, and in that way we're proving the value of iMe. Another thing that we are doing right now is we're creating benchmarks, and those benchmarks we're going to open source it. So every, let's say, startup internal team can test themselves based on our benchmarks. We're using also different teams, third-party auditor to help us identify those benchmarks. And yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, and sharing those benchmarks is probably a good kind of narrative or public relations piece for you as well, for folks to be familiar with what you're doing and being able to reference those benchmarks in their own work as well. And so that's definitely very helpful to do. Maybe a broader question here, and one that's a little bit forward looking, because I think, again, narrative wise, AI is just on the top of mind for everybody right now. How do you kind of see AI evolving? What's your view on the current landscape of early stage AI startups? What does the market look like in a few years from now?
Well, I'll tell you my view. It is very cynical. But at the same time, I'm trying to alarm people. I'm trying also to push to their limits. I think that my generation and the generation after me is a bit of comfortable in the sense that they have stopped being creative. Everywhere I see is .ai, right? It reminds me a lot of the .com bubble. And right now there are startups that are building on the application layer. And when you build on the application layer, we have seen from the history right now of OpenAI, of Claude, that every time they release something, they're killing a startup. For example, I'm going to use the example of Claude, this very recent one. They announced the plugins, and the plugins is about productivity, for example, in the legal domain, in the accounting, in the marketing, in the HR. Well, if a startup was building, and there are many startups, for example, that are building in the legal one, right? I'm not going to name them and just avoid any issues there. And they were so overvalued because just with a plugin, Anthropic literally is competing with them, but also show how easy it is to build it. So they raised so much amount of money in a hyper valuation, and now their investors are kind of, maybe we have put our chips in the wrong startup or in the wrong project. But why it is a problem of those AI startups? Or I would use another example. On Friday night, Claude Anthropic announced the Claude cybersecurity code. That means that you can check about cybersecurity issues, and we have seen a downtrend in the market of CloudStrikes and other cybersecurity teams. What I'm sharing is public information, so there is nothing wrong about sharing some names now. That shows that the old SaaS model is under a threat, for starters. That shows also the narrative that focus on one idea, focus on one problem is a good idea. I mean, you should focus on a problem for sure, but not on a shallow problem. So if you're focused, for example, on productivity for legal, it's on the application layer. I can guarantee you that 99% of those companies are going to die because of Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI releases. Because those companies, they have raised so much money that they're trying to make it as sticky as possible to their platform, because otherwise they're going to go bust. And there is not enough liquidity. So what are you doing? You are killing the SaaS, existing SaaS, and you are killing also the startups that they have raised so much amount of money. So the economy will go back to you. So this is where I'm seeing the issue going. And my suggestion to every startup is think of the problem, but thinking deeper, no shallow problems. And now is not the moment of shallow problems, because the barrier of entry into the economy because of these tools, it's much less. So before is the AI revolution is the revolution of the knowledge worker. A knowledge worker is also the coder, right? So that means that a non-coder can create something. That means that you don't have a niche anymore. The barrier of entry is lower. So you need to go deep. Either you go on the infrastructure or you change the business workflow so that AI solution will make sense and it will be sticky enough. But what I know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, it's both a spicy take and some practical advice for folks out there. So you wrapped both in there very nicely. That was great to hear. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And to your point, OpenAI and Anthropic, every time they're releasing these new updates, they're kind of killing swarms of startups who are trying to work in some specific areas. And it's challenging. Apple kind of had that same ability in the past where if they built something new for the App Store that a lot of different people had built single applications for, Apple could come out and release something and kind of do the same thing. And so we're maybe seeing a little bit of a repeat of history on that side. Not exactly a repeat, but maybe more of a rhyme. But yeah, similar to some extent.
And it's a faster rhyme because, as I told you, the friction, it has the barrier of entry for non-developers to get into the market or for developers to develop something is much less thanks to the tool, vibe coding tools, etc. So yeah, it has, you said, is the same rhyme. I was reading today on X. There was a founder, very lovely founder. She said, our startup just got killed by Claude, right? So it's crazy. It's wild west, and the speed of things is literally crazy.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever been a time where things could be faster to ship or to build and ship. I mean, it seems like even just keeping up with high-level AI news on a weekly basis is a full-time job in and of itself.
So literally, you are totally right on that.
Yeah. Awesome. And maybe so one last question here, and just to switch gears a little bit onto the fundraising strategy side. Of course, that's a piece of the work for a founder. I'm curious for you, what's been your best strategy or maybe strategies for finding potential investors so far? What does fundraising strategy look like for you?
Every quarter, the strategy changes. Let's start for that. Because we're living in a very uncertain times, geopolitical situation, etc. But also what I said about the OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini. So the investors, I mean, Europe has been always a bit more, let's say, conservative in the investing into startups. But also now US is becoming like that because of the politics, but also of those big companies that they have raised so much. So we have seen that the investors are becoming a bit more conservative in general. So an investor doesn't, a promise back in the day, the dream, the vision to the founder could help you raise enough on the pre-seed and build an MVP. That is not the case. It's very difficult. You need a good network. You need to go to, I would suggest going to an accelerator with good credentials that they can bring you to the network, because it's a very close network. And I've been to the GRX, I've met a lot of VCs. I decline many of them, actually all of them, because I try to do something different. Don't take the safe route. Try to bootstrap as much as possible. Raise enough money that will keep you afloat for the next 9 to 10 months. It sounds like gambling, but if you really believe in your idea and to your team, it's not gambling. It is betting on you, right? And then have something solid to show either on a product with good traction or with good benchmarks. So in our case, because we are deep tech, is benchmarks and let's say results case. But if you are, let's say, on the service, on the SaaS, on the new SaaS, let's call it new SaaS because the old SaaS is becoming much more different now. It's build a product that has good traction. LOIs maybe work. It also depends how you got that LOI. If, for example, you know the owner of a company and you got the LOI and he's really serious about doing it, I think it gives more guarantees to the investor. And again, make sure that you have the answer to the question, how do I know that OpenAI won't, in their next release, is not going to release your product? If you don't have that answer, you are out. So bootstrap as much as possible. Find investors that they believe in you as a person. Because we are seeing also, I'll tell you this example. Anthropic knows all the challenges and security issues that the AI misalignment can cause. They intentionally don't pay that much attention because they have big checks, big investors behind them that they're pushing them to become, cash positive. So it's important to select your investor. Small check is much more important than big check with constraints and pressure. And unfortunately, now the startup world is becoming like F1 and tennis. It's a very expensive sport, especially in Europe. In US, it's much different, but still, the question about how do I know OpenAI or Anthropic in their next release is not going to kill you.
I think you hit a couple good points there because, one, investors are looking for more points of traction early on and more proof point, especially because it is easier to build and ship product faster now than ever before. So that bar of traction is higher. And then to your point on bootstrapping and who you should align with, I think we're seeing a lot of bifurcation in the market as well, where, some folks are raising really big rounds really early on, and it's unlike anything we've kind of seen in the market before for, a first round of a company or a second round to be 9 figures, $1 billion plus. Some of these people that are coming from OpenAI or Anthropic and who have the name brand are raising these massive pre-seed and seed rounds like we've never seen before. And that's the very extreme end of the market. And then you have a lot more founders who, to your point, should be doing more of this bootstrapped approach to find these great traction narratives, have a good positioning in the market, and then be able to use that to raise, amount of funding that works for them, but also doesn't mean that they have to be a unicorn overnight and put that kind of immediate pressure on your business.
Exactly. Right now, for example, in the UK, we have the SCIS and the EIS. If you are able to raise 250K, and trust me, it's easy to raise 250K in the UK. Unfortunately, we didn't use any of it yet, and I keep that as a safety net. But 250K, trust me, is more than enough right now with the current tech stack, especially from the AI. Cursor has an amazing AI, let's say, assistant for coding. The same for Codex and Cloud Code, right? So there are so many tools that brings your cost so much lower that with 250K, you can have an MVP in 2-3 months max, and you can use the rest of the money for go to market. So don't raise money just for the sake of raising. Raise enough for the next 10 to 12 months. And I know it sounds scary for the founders. I have been there. There is nothing much nicer than that because the survival mode kicks in, and something that the AI doesn't have yet, it is intuitive creativity. And that for me, and I think the majority of the founders, kicks in when you're on the survival mode, when the dopamine kicks in. With the whole team. You're gonna see the whole team working on not only normal time, but also on the weekends until 4 o'clock with crazy ideas, with the boards and stuff like that. And it's beautiful. Not for everyone. Especially if you have family, if you have dependency, it's crazy. And that's why startups is not for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're at time. Thank you, Dimitri, for joining me on Bits and Atoms. It was great to have you today and get your perspective here. I'll let you get back to building, and best of luck.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a very interesting conversation. One of the few that it was unfiltered and uncensored to the level of the accelerator I used to be, the GRX accelerator in London. I know we said not to do promotion, but I need to do it because it really changed my life and I'm very grateful. And he's still doing it. So thank you, guys.
Absolutely. We loved having you and glad that I was able to have a good impact on you. We're very grateful to hear that.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.